Welcome to the Live Well podcast, and I'm really excited today. We've got with a special guest, Iain Tait. The whole idea of our Live Well podcast is just how do we implement wisdom and really think about how do we all just live well, live better. We're living in a time right now, a lot of us are thinking about how we stay well, but we want to think about how we live well. So I'm really excited to have Iain with us today. Iain is from Freedom Corp, and it's going to be talking about us. One of the things happening right now is a lot of upheaval in our economy at the moment, and we're going to be thinking about actually how do we live well through that. So I want to just let you get to know Iain a little bit first. So Iain, tell us about what you do at Freedom Corp.
Great. Well, I've been involved in the financial arena for around about 30 years, and I've seen, highs and lows and so on. But Freedom Corp was really pioneered out of the need to give families, give mums and dads really strong financial foundations, that they become good at their cash flow management, that their relationships would be strong, that they wouldn't be torn by financial crises every day. We've got a big one right now, but certainly that they would really build their lives on strong financial foundations. And it's been a really exciting journey.
One of the things I love about what you do is, you would be a financial planner. Would that be right?
Yes.
And often we can think about that something almost like, well, people with a lot of money need one of those, or it's kind of just for the elite or things like that.
Yeah.
But your passion is really just helping every person, experience that. Is that right?
That's so true. And in fact, we made a decision about a decade ago to become general practitioners. So we are financial planners, but we also became tax accountants. We also became mortgage brokers. We train people in cash flow management. We help people set their goals. So it's quite a sort of a generic thing. So the closest thing that you could say is a bit like going to your doctor. He can do all things, but he can bring specialists in when it's required. So that's the approach we take, yeah.
And maybe what do you love most about what you get to do in that?
Okay. Interestingly, the industry is dominantly focused on high net wealth individuals, people who've probably got a fair amount of money already, who are prepared and able to pay big fees. What really excites us as families, we're completely contrarian. People are perplexed by us in our industry. We love mums and dads and kids and golden retrievers and, people who
golden retrievers don't often think enough about the future.
They don't, but they eat a lot. So they're needy dogs. They eat a lot,
they're needy sort of dogs, like all my stock's in gold. And no, I'm sorry.
Exactly. I shouldn't have got it. Yeah, totally. So that whole vibe of people just getting really solid and you don't need to be a wealthy person. You could be a person starting out with your first job. You could be that brand new married couple. You could be that couple hoping to buy your first home, and the need is way greater for them than it is for that high net wealth individual. So that's where we focused, and it's as I say, it's completely contrarian in the industry, but we absolutely love it. It's what makes us work.
I love that, and that's why I was so excited to have you on, because I know there's so many people who I know you love to help people, just average people, and how to help them live well through that, and when we're able to live well with our finances, amazing the carry on that has, in so many aspects of our life. So I'm so grateful you come and share some of that wisdom today. I know it's gonna help a lot of people as they're watching, because we are right now in this moment where, with all of the changes happening with COVID-19 and how it's affecting jobs, economics, it's not just the illness side, it's how it's affecting our economy. And that's affecting moms and dads and young people starting out in jobs. What are some of the things you've just started to see already that are happening as a result of the changes taking place?
Okay, well, I'm going to take one small step back, and I'm going to relate to something we were talking about just a moment ago, which is Jenga.
Jenga, the game Jenga.
Jenga. You picture, for those who don't know it, it's that block. You stack up a whole bunch of blocks, and then one by one you pull blocks out, and then eventually the tower collapses. The thing that's completely perplexed me over the last year is, why has the global economy not collapsed earlier? Because it is just completely out there. We've been getting 20+% returns on our supers, while interest rates have been at 1% all around the world. We've had people with no savings, people who are just getting deep into debt, and still the economy sort of staggers on. So the virus was not the cause of the collapse. It was the last block that got pulled out. So the thing that intrigued us mostly was that, how was the average person in the street going to be able to cope with this big crisis? Now, thankfully, we live in an incredible country called Australia. So the government spun in there and really helped with a lot of people, and there's going to be more coming. But the first thing I've seen is a complete, almost grief as people's plans and hopes and dreams for that new car or that house upgrade or that international holiday have just evaporated. Where they've sat down and they've had to get to know each other. The footy is off TV. Maybe they've watched as much Netflix as they possibly can today, and they've spun around and realised they've got somebody called a wife or a husband or a partner. Who knows? But it's people having to learn to get to know each other and cook together and eat together, and strangely, there's a new dynamic coming. Yeah, I feel it in my bones.
Yeah, it is. It's very fascinating because these things, that all of it changes, and it's not just that then I can't get the car. It's actually my whole rhythm of life has changed. Everyone's what they're doing, what they're experiencing. So it is fascinating how it's affecting dynamics in every direction.
And the first symptom was the toilet roll. We got global footage for people fighting over toilet rolls, but it was a symptom of what would happen if the toilet paper ran out. So then it went on to baked beans, and now it's probably on to, I don't know.
Oh, do you know what I can tell you? Well, that is one. I had a friend had trouble with that. The other one, interesting one this week, all the kids, everyone's starting to work at home, and kids are doing school from home. My wife went out trying to get printer ink. It's like trying to get toilet paper 2 weeks ago. So
done.
That's the new thing.
Seats.
Or 6 weeks. Yeah, that's it. So it is fascinating how it keeps changing and shifting and
totally.
What we need.
Absolutely. Wow. And it's a completely new paradigm.
Yeah.
I mean, my mother is has lived through the Second World War. She's lived through recessions and all kinds of things. This is completely uncharted for her.
Yeah.
So this is unprecedented times. But there's some incredibly good news as well, which we'll share later. But in the midst of this adversity, there is significant opportunity, and we'll address that.
That even as you say that, and just before we do then move on, as you said, you've been doing this for 30 years. So you've seen, some dramatic things. Now this one's unprecedented, as we all said. This one's unique.
Yes.
Just the nature of it, the global aspects and reality, the way technology is involved in this. All these things are unique, but in terms of the highs and lows of finances, you've seen a number of things.
3 cycles.
3 cycles.
Yes.
And what are there any lessons you'd say right off the bat that you sort of go before we get into a couple of things? You know what? Having seen 30 years of cycles, what would be I guess some comments you'd make?
Okay. The strangest thing is the vast majority, 97% of people, are at their most financially, frenetic weeks before the crash. When your taxi driver is talking about his property portfolio, or when one of your friends is telling you about a fantastic share portfolio that he recommends, when people are talking about really stretching out and getting rid of their cash reserves and throwing it all in, you're very close to the end. In fact, there's people I know, people that as well, actually, before the last big crash, where I actually sat down and said, guys, we need to build cash reserves now. We need to lock it down now. The big difference with this one is that I saw that we were very unstable globally. I really felt that. I spoke to some fairly high people, economists and so on. We all felt the same thing, but we didn't know when. And this one came completely out of left field. I mean, it literally came from a wild game and fish market in China. No one saw it coming. It was not a big bank in Wall Street. It was out of left field. So that's left people specially unprepared. And then the whole lockdown situation. So this one's completely uncharted, but it's got much of the same thing, which is the financial crisis, the terror, the fear, often fictional events appearing real, fear, but fear of losing their home, losing their job, losing their car, marriage estrangement, and so on, just crushes people. So I think actually the government's done a great job this time of not getting people too terrified, saying we're here for you guys. There's a big safety net. Now, some people will say they didn't go quick enough, or they didn't do this, or they didn't do that. Some people will still be saying that. But, I think 15% of our GDP is being directed towards rescuing the Australian economy. So I think this time round, guys, we can ease back the fear a bit and start focusing on the real opportunity.
Well, that's great. I love that idea as well. That, hey, how do we focus on that opportunity? I love how you mentioned, that fear's a reality. That's going to be common in all these cycles. This is this experience people can be having. And I said, fear, I could lose this, fear, I could lose that. Yeah. And what we're going to talk about today that I so appreciate you bringing is a strategy, a 7-step strategy for peace of mind. Okay. And that's one of the things that we hope you'll be able to walk away from is how do you actually put some things in place that are going to help you eliminate. As I said, the government's going to help us do some things that can start to dial down the fear. But we're going to look at a bit of a strategy for how the average person can experience peace of mind, which just to say those words, I'm sure will be so helpful for so many. Is that
perfect?
Sound good?
I'll crack into that.
Great.
I will add one thing first.
Sure.
We actually shared it before. So a lot of the fear is based on what you think might happen. And the analogy we were talking about before is, if you imagine any of you with a 3-year-old kid, and a 3-year-old comes in and says, I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to beat you up. I am going to mess you up. You're not that fearful because you look at that 3-year-old and say, bring it on, it's not going to happen, unless they're very strategic 3-year-old, there may be some out there, but equally if a 7-foot-tall bikie and his buddies walked in and said the very same things, you would be very afraid because you knew there would be a real risk of that being delivered on. So what I'm getting at is it's more the 3-year-old scenario this time round. There's going to be a lot of support to make sure you don't get messed up, but you're going to need to follow some solid steps, and we'll kick straight into those 7 steps now.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that picture. Hey, I love the way that's going to start to give peace of mind already. Cool. So great. Let's look at that. Let's have a look at the steps you got for us.
Let's do it. Okay, so first and foremost, this is the one. So imagine over the last decade, I've probably spoken to thousands of people about cash flow management, about really getting control of your financial affairs, about knowing where your money's going, about really being orderly, almost taking a small business approach to your family. And I have to say 97% of the people that I spoke to in that manner were genuinely hand on heart not interested because people didn't want to save. They didn't really feel the need to save. Everything was good. We lived in Australia. They'd rather throw that money against the next holiday or the next car or the next upgrade of the home.
Those all sound like a lot more fun than savings.
A lot more fun than savings, because savings is something that you're hoping for the future. Yeah. Spending is right now. I can really enjoy that. So that's step number 1. Apply all efforts to reducing what you spend. We've got a very cool tool. It's a cash flow manager. It's super easy to use, guys. Anybody who wants it, it's absolutely free of charge. Dean or Freedom Corp will make that available to you guys.
We'll be able to attach that, I think, below so that people can
we can ping that out there. Yeah, great. Yeah. It's a really helpful tool. And if you need any coaching on it, pick up the phone. We'll chat to you. But that'll help you understand what you've got left over. So you can factor in what the government's going to provide, what your mortgage payments are. You may have turned your mortgage payments off for 6 months for some of you, but what is your actual real situation as a family? So identify how you can reduce spend. And one of the things, again, just taking a little bit of feedback from what I'm seeing around me, where our office is it's got a bunch of apartments above it. So, we've got a ground floor office, and we went out to the trash bin, the rubbish bin the other day, and it was massively overflowing with Uber Eats. So point being, it's great. You're supporting restaurants, fantastic. You're supporting Uber, terrific. But wait a minute, these are families that are really struggling financially, probably. So let's start doing something really unusual with our time. Let's start making meals together.
Oh, okay.
Let's bring out that recipe book or open the iPad and do some cool stuff.
Wow.
Let's look what's in the cupboard. Yeah. And let's start reducing our cost. And we can take that right across the board. So rule number 1, apply all efforts to significantly reduce what you spend.
And I love what you say there. So everywhere you can, and that first rule, all efforts to significantly reduce, and I love what you mentioned there as well, even thinking, what does that cooking look like? And it's really interesting because we were talking earlier about how this is changing our rhythm of life.
Yep.
And in some ways, maybe never a better time to go. Totally. If you don't, I'm somebody, I don't like cooking if I have time pressure. Yes. I can enjoy it when I have a little more space for it. Yeah. And what I found is it actually is, because there's, kind of nowhere else to go, nothing to watch. I've suddenly got an excess amount of time.
And probably a big stock of canned tomatoes.
We kind of went, hey, we could kind of eat on some of these cans for a while, right?
That's right, and, totally,
And it is a great thing to kind of really look and go, some of the ways, because I think initially that effort to reduce what you spend sometimes feels painful, but this might be one of those unique seasons where it can also be enjoyable. And finding ways to do that, to enjoy cooking, putting on some music you enjoy, that kind of thing. So it's really interesting to go, there's some ways you can really reduce that spending
100%
that are unique.
And even more. So not everybody listening to this will have kids. But for those of you who have kids, they could be teenagers for that matter. I'm saying make this a family game. Put the family on a war zone, a war footing, and say, we have to cut back, guys. We need to live frugally. We need to live within our means. We need to be strong. So teach the kids cash flow management. The tool that we're going to make available to you, sit down as a family, learn how to use it. The schools don't teach you this. I think we would have one of the least literate financial communities in the world in Australia. We are very good at spending. We're very bad at saving. So go through this and make it an exercise. Make it an empowering thing where we can actually come out of this at the end of the day with great cash flow management in the family, great skills that the kids are going to use for the rest of their life, and a couple that understand that they're on the same page.
How great is that? What a different way to look at what's happening, versus fear. And as you said, even going for those who have kids, most likely you're now their teacher as well. Most of the people listening, if you do have kids, and hey, you can almost add these elective classes. There's
Cash
so
Flow
much
101.
Cash Flow 101.
Yeah,
you know
totally.
what? After towards the end of the day or whatever, or when everybody's home, I think it's a great thought to go, how can everyone learn skills in this situation that maybe there wasn't the kind of the impetus there to do in another. So
or the time. Or the time. Your dad comes running in, fast meal, and no time to chat.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
That's good. Okay.
All right, second one.
Yeah. Turn off all possible external outgoings. Now, what I mean by that is this. And this will be controversial because for some people, if they've got the cash flow, there may be benefit in keeping the payments up because, the interest rate will be paid at some stage. But speak to your bank. Speak to your car loan people. You might be able to turn your power bill off for the moment. You might be able to look at other things that you negotiate where you just basically, so you've reduced your internal spend, but then on top of that, you've reduced your cash bleed. So it's basically, again, putting it on a war footing. We don't want to lose any capital out of this business unit. We want to maintain every dollar that we've got in the family unit, and we want to reduce our burn rate in the family unit. So reduce the burn rate, reduce the spend, reduce the amount that's flowing out of the household. And, I know it's not that hard to do. Literally, if you go to your bank, you'll find on a website normally a COVID-19 tab. You hit that, and they'll ask you the question: do you want 3 or 6 months? You go 3 or 6 months. That means you may have to pay a little bit more interest down the track. Not interest per se, but in payments over time. But it means you're going to have a bit of wriggle room right now. And more importantly, that will allow you to build your cash reserves up. Because one of the things that is implicit within the first 2 steps is build that war chest. Have some money so that if something bad happens, that you've actually got those cash reserves. So that's number 2.
So number 2, turn off all possible external outgoings. And
Yes.
as you said, it's really great how a lot of how forthright so many of the different institutions seem to be right now and making that a possibility. But you'd encourage people to do that. Now, the third one here, save all that you can into a cash reserve. Tell us about that one. Yeah.
So very much the case where, those of who've met with me face to face, I draw a little diagram, and I think you saw it at a workshop we did some time ago. So what I basically say is we need as a family to get to NPI. NPI means non-perspiration income. It means where you're safe. Okay, underneath that, a good safety net. We need to look at how we do that. But one of them is a cash bucket, real accessible cash. That is critical, because whenever a crisis has happened, for example, the GFC, people were picking up cars for half price because the guy just had to make some money. He had to get liquidity. So cash is king in these times. Cash reserves, absolutely vital. Sell stuff on Gumtree, reduce your spend, reduce your external portion, do whatever you can to get a nice little cash reserve off to one side. So that is a very strong number 3. And I think I addressed it somewhat in 1 and 2, but that's vital, absolutely vital.
And helpful. So what you're saying there as well is these steps 1 and 2 are really about helping you build 3.
Absolutely.
Build the cash reserve. I love your idea of NPI, that no
perspiration income.
No perspiration income. And that idea, unpack that idea, because I love when you talk about that idea, because I think sometimes we can think about maybe financial planning or management. People are like, well, it's about how do you, get the boat out and, the new yacht, or how do you achieve a certain milestone. But I love what you're actually trying to help people is not just going, hey, here's the goal to kind of have all these luxuries, but rather a really simple idea that I think everyone can love, which is tell us about that NPI.
That's right. And I'll give you a little testimony of somebody who did that. So a young guy came to me many years ago, and he said he wanted to be financially independent in his mid-20s. And you go like, how the heck do you do that? But his scale was real low. All he wanted was just to have enough liquidity to follow his dreams. And his dream was to set up a global charity, an organization that would get people out of poverty. And he needed cash flow for that. So at 19, he started on that journey. And at 27, he got there, believe it or not. He had a mortgage-free home at 27, which was delivering him around about 22 grand a year. He then went off to Africa and helped pioneer an organization that has now got over 1 million people out of poverty, like permanently out of poverty. And that all started with getting financial independence young. So I'm not necessarily talking about retirement, even though retirement is for many people when they think that. I'm talking about people getting freedom. And the rules that we're going to be applying to this current crisis absolutely apply to normal life in a vibrant economy. So one of the good things that we will address in a moment, which is that there is going to be a pretty strong bounce back in WA, and I've got solid reasons to believe that. But when the times start getting good again, don't go back to the old habits. Use this as a foundation to get real freedom.
I think that is that idea that, it is about that kind of no perspiration. It's not how much, it's actually, can your life, as you said, he had low ceilings. You can actually, and I think this unique moment as well is, I guess in some ways, because so many things are, kind of the joke is, well, everything's canceled. You can't spend on this, you can't spend on that.
You can order on eBay, but it's not going to arrive.
But yeah, that's right. That's right. But that idea that, learning to live more simply. Sometimes all the perspiration comes from just wanting more. So it actually...
We're addicted to it.
We can be addicted and the need for more. But that idea of just going... It's not about hitting a certain level, but figuring out for you, what's that no perspiration? Because isn't a life where you don't have to sweat? Finances has more peace attached to it than a life that might have all the luxuries, but you're sweating. Sweating whether it's all gonna work.
Yeah, and I will just address that ever so slightly. So I know people who are worth many, many millions of dollars, and they're worrying more because when you've got everything, you're afraid of losing it. So people who appear to have the most peace often are people just who've adjusted their lives to live relatively simple lives. Yeah,
and I love the way that flips it on its head. That's awesome. Yeah. Now the other thing, maybe ask you this as well. Suppose there are people listening, and now they've, now the crisis has come, if you will, or it's one of those moments. It's among us, and as you said, there's lots of reasons. Don't be afraid of that or anything necessarily. There's lots of things that'll be happening, but if people are watching and they go, "Well, I wish I had," I didn't do that when I should have. What would you say to them? How would you, I guess, speak to that person who might feel like, "Well, I didn't build cash reserves. Here I am. What now?"
Fantastic. Okay, so what I would say for that is this. Good. Strangely, one of the challenges we've had within our societies is we've been greenhouse plants. We've never had a recession here for 20 plus years. We've lived this fair, and we probably haven't felt this way, but we've lived in a bit of utopia, really, in Australia. Most of us have not really had to struggle. But the truth is that struggle is vital. It's critical. It's a bit like getting fit. There's no way you can build muscle mass without stressing your muscles. It's the same with everything about life. The challenges of life define who you become. So I'm saying, this sounds inappropriate, but it's tough. You've made some mistakes. I'll say the word that comes right to my head right now: suck it up. Learn from these opportunities. Recalibrate your life. Instead of rolling up into a ball on the ground, take your eyes from the ground and look up and go, okay. So how can I protect my mental health? How can I protect my physical health? How can I sort out my financial affairs within the resources I've got? How can I do the best possible job with what I've been given? And that will set you up amazingly for the future. And I'm just going to touch on that point for a moment. And again, many of you listening to this will feel this is very appropriate for you, and many will find it inappropriate. But I will say this: build a solid foundation mentally for yourself. I mean, for us, each year we actually have like something that we define the year with. And before this even happened, the word that we got in our hearts for the year was trust in the Lord with all of your heart, lean not on your own understanding, acknowledge him in all of your ways, and he will make your path straight. Now, for me, that builds a really robust foundation under my mental health. I know that I'm okay because I can pray, or I can fall face down, or I can trust in that outcome. I feel not alone. For some of you, that will feel like hocus pocus and not a fit for you, and that's okay. But for me, that's super, super important, which brings us actually to the next one.
That's awesome.
Which is the outward look. It's really important, I think, in these crises to be purposeful.
I just want to read to people. Here's step 4. I love this. Look up from your own challenges and out to help those who are struggling even more. And I think we're trying to build peace of mind here. And I love that now our next step is look up from your own challenges and out to help those struggling even more.
Absolutely. And because there's people who are hurting, there are people who are disabled, there are people who are, they're left with kids and or their finances are in total disarray. And I think there's an outside chance that families are over-provisioned in their pantries at the moment.
I've seen some photos now.
It's probably not true, but I think there's a chance that people got a couple of cans of baked beans and some toilet rolls.
Based on some shelves we've seen. It would appear that way.
We have seen. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that there's something really, really special in helping others. Now, for us in our street, we've got a fantastic little community. Now, we haven't gone out there and driven up and down and handed out toilet rolls. We've just looked to people maybe in the street a little bit older or a bit more isolated and said, look, if the washer fails in your kitchen, I'm okay at plumbing. Let me help you there. If you need a hand with that lawn or whatever, just be a bit kind. And there's a selfishness to it in a sense because it feels good to help other people. So mentally, it's a really good thing, and you can separate 1.5 meters when you're mowing a lawn.
That's right. I love that, and I think that really hits on something special here. And I think that's why I hope as people watching, this is about how do you have peace of mind. And that's the goal. It's to feel peace, to not be sweating, to not be kind of overcome with the fear and the anxious. And one of the best ways, that's so practical is that just looking up, looking out. When you find yourself almost maybe absorbed in your own challenges, there is something incredibly freeing that actually brings peace of mind to go, oh wait, how can I help you? How can I look outward? You know, who can I touch him with? Who can I message? Talk to your neighbors, help them out. And it's like the things that we're consuming, they kind of fade away a bit.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yep, totally. And I just want to add one extra thing to that, and that is, you know, being generous to other people is really important, but be generous to each other as well. You know, give each other a bit of a break, because it can be stressful. You know, you're all jammed together, and it's from every adversity, there's an equal and opposite benefit if you look for it. If you look for it. So people go, where is the benefit in this? But wait a minute, you may recalibrate your family. You may learn to run your family finances like a small business, really tight and orderly, and not being miserable, but being orderly. You know, you may build deep relationship with your kids where otherwise you're spending minutes in the day, you're spending hours in the day. You may learn to play Monopoly again, or get your garden better than it's ever been. Your car may be the shiniest it's ever been. We were laughing about it earlier.
Yep.
But you know, like, just don't look at it as all adversity. Look around and go, A, I'm blessed, I'm in Australia. B, and how good is it that we've got really robust safety nets that we can rely on being in this society. C, you know, we've got fabulous medical resources, probably the best in the world, you know. So really we're in a great place if we're going to be anywhere for this. And then look around and say, what can I do to make me better? What was the phrase we have for these workshops? Live well. Live well.
How do we learn to live well? That's right.
Not just now. How do we live well going forward? In 5 years' time, when we look back at this and go, actually, that was a really important time for us.
Yeah, I love that. I love that concept, and imagine that it is all the benefit that could come, and that's such a different way. It changes the way we experience it. Now we got two more steps here. We're going to look at number 6: stay fit and active and avoid the negative press. I love what you put there for
totally. So
finding peace.
This is a cool one as well. So I have 3 sons who are very really all into fitness. And one of them's just come back from Samoa. So he was working over in Samoa. His wife is literally days away. I think you know the lady. Days away from having a baby.
Congratulations.
Yeah, really exciting. So they needed to come back from Samoa and just sneaked in actually before the doors closed. But he's got this Samoan fitness program, what you can do in the house to stay fit. And there's so many of them online. So get fit, you know, trim up. You know, here's another thing. Here's a fascinating bit of trivia. During the Second World War, the statistics are very, very clear. Excluding the people who obviously had the tragedy of being killed in the war itself, the rest of the population in the western part of the world had dramatically improved health. Dramatically improved health. Wow. Lower heart disease, lower diabetes, lower cancer rates, because on average they had half the calories.
Wow.
They didn't have nearly as much access to animal fat, and they, by its very nature, walked and moved a lot more because public transport was locked down. We eat way too much.
I bet they had less Krispy Kreme donuts.
No, yeah,
no. Are you telling me that
was invented by the other side? Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But all jokes aside, that is to look at that and say, okay, so we're not only eating, but what about we really look into nutrition? There's a great movie some of you may want to watch called Forks Over Knives. It's on Netflix. We can do a lot to help our health. We could come out of this slimmer, healthier, fitter, with really locked down financial structure within the family, and we may even love the people around us, God willing.
Come on. Who doesn't want to embrace that?
That's right.
I love that you bring those things up because it's all interrelated.
It is.
How we feel
and mentally
peace
as
of
well.
mind.
Totally.
Peace of mind.
Yeah.
And then the last one you have for us, don't stress, as this is a season that will pass.
Yeah. Okay. So the thing again is this, and I just want to stress this to everybody. This is not Ebola. This is not a 95% kill rate. This disease is going to cause tragedy, but the vast majority of the population is going to be fine. They may or may not get the flu. A small portion will end up in hospital if we can keep the curve low. You've heard this 1,000 times. I genuinely don't want to bore you with it. But here's the deal. It will pass. Now, let's look at what happened when the last major financial crash occurred, which was the GFC. Okay, so what happened exactly is this. The rest of the world was in serious trouble. So they looked to stimulate out of the back of the GFC. Not as quickly as we're doing this time, by the way. It took them a lot longer. And the reason, by the way, that the Great Depression was stretched out over so long, it took them nearly 3 years to start stimulating. The reason the Second World War recovery was quite fast was because the Marshall Plan was kicked in for the Axis countries, which is Germany and Japan and so on, and they grew pretty quickly out of that. The GFC was pretty quick to stimulate, but this time it's been fast. So imagine for a moment, it could be $20 trillion by the time this is all over. It's approaching 10 trillion right now, but let's call it 20 trillion. A lot of that's going to be used for infrastructure, for road systems, for hopefully green energy, wind turbines, you name it, who knows. But the world is going to spend trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars to get people back to work, to get economies back on their feet. And guess what they're going to need more than anything else? Raw materials. Last time, if we all think back to West Australia, during the peak of this period, last time, WA surpassed New South Wales in terms of property values, employment levels. It was a massive, massive uptake for Western Australia. So say I'm wrong. Say I'm exaggerating. Say this is not going to happen at that level, and we're just going to get a small roll-on effect. It's going to actually take this state out of what has been really a recession for 5 years. I am hopeful for. So at the end of this storm, at the end of this tribulation, we are hoping, there's no guarantees in any of this, but we are hoping that this could be a new season for this state and that we can start to get back on our feet economically, but hopefully this time with better calibration, better budgets in the family, not blowing all our money on brand new utes and jet skis, actually getting ourselves in really good shape and something that will be generationally improved.
What I love about that and being able to look and go, it always, when you're in the middle of a difficulty, it's kind of, you look all around and people may just be seeing what's around them, but there is that reality. This season will pass. There will be a change, whatever that change, there will be change.
Yes.
And so this is a moment where imagine emerging into that next season, all those things you said, more, a better calibration of life, a better calibration of finances, making the most of what had happened. And I think for people to feel that peace of mind, just sometimes it's helpful to have, even somebody who's going, look, I've been doing this for 30 years. I've seen it. I think that'll help people just have the peace of mind, just knowing this won't be forever, And so I so appreciate that perspective for everybody who's listening.
Great. Thank you so much. That's really appreciate it.
Iain, thank you so much for coming. And I know for people listening, it's just, I hope this helps you in a time when there's a lot of fear and worry around. These are some fantastic steps to try to have peace of mind. None of this these are all things that are just related to how do you have peace of mind in a time that might be hard. So we've got those 7 steps for you. We're going to have those tools attached to this, and in whatever way that is, you'll be able to click and get a hold of those, and the cash flow manager that Iain talked about. If you feel like, I'd like to engage Iain, Freedom Corp, to get some extra help or advice or wherever, if you just want to start there, you can go to their website. That's freedomcorp.com.au, and we'll have that down as well. And so if you want to get in touch to take it further.
And we're getting very good at Zoom and FaceTime and everything, by the way.
They'll Zoom you, FaceTime you. They'd love to meet with you at a healthy distance.
That's right. Good social separation.
Iain, thank you so much. Fantastic. Appreciate you coming on.